Alright guys, it's me, it's Tycoon. I'm not doing a review. This is a little bit different today, and this is because it's going to be a bit hard for me to say this, but if you don't know who this guy at the bottom is, then allow me to introduce him to you. It's Comicstorian, and if you're a part of the comic book community, this guy has played a massive influence in, you know, in all areas of comic books. Um, whether you were introduced to comic books through the movies from the MCU, or whether you've always been a lifelong fan of comic books and collected them and still do collect them, or whether you was like me, a kid who collected comic books, uh, learned to read from them, and then stopped as got older, went to school, that kind of thing, fell out of love with it, but kind of still liked the characters because the cartoons, but just couldn't be bothered to buy the books anymore. That kind of thing. And then due to YouTube, you rediscover your love for comics because of guys like Comics Explained, Double Spill Comics, and of course Comicstorian. Comicstorian, or Ben Potter, or Benny, as he would sometimes be referred to. He basically took all your story arcs, great story arcs, broke it down into digestible chunks, and read it back dramatically for the viewer's pleasure. And it's the kind of thing that I wanted to do, but just never did do it because I didn't have the confidence to do that kind of thing. And Benny did, and he done it. And not only did he do that, but he had a great, varied life. And basically, when I turned on TikTok today, I saw a video from King Lion and saying that one of ours has fallen. I was like, and saw a little bit in the background, and then went to Twitter. Now I'm not great on Twitter. I don't give a monkey's about Twitter. You go where there's more love for you, and Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, those kind of places. I've got more love. So hence why I didn't see it on Twitter until I went and actively saw it out, and then found out that a couple of days ago, Benny passed. His wife put on a tweet saying Benny had passed away due to an accident, and it's like, oh God. And this guy was amazing, just in life, he was there at the start of YouTube. I followed him in his 10-year journey, right from the start in 2014. Him and Comicstorian, when they were brand new starting out, and YouTube was not bought by Google at the time. They hadn't changed the algorithms to make it the toughest platform to actually grow a following on. And he brought comics to life. He read it back dramatically. He done it in such a way that was so beautiful. It was so animated. It brought your heroes like Spider-Man, Captain America, Batman, all these characters to life. And he then set up a separate channel called Comicstorian as well, and brought those characters to life as well, from One Piece to Attack on Titan, Berserk. He done an amazing job on Berserk. You fell in love with comics all over again, and you realise that there was a lot of shortfalls with the MCU, but you know what? It is absolutely fine. We've got these guys on platforms like YouTube where it's easily accessible, and you didn't have to be, you didn't have to be a part of the mainstream crowd to be able to enjoy his work. And that's the great thing about YouTube and guys, content creators like Comicstorian, is that they came from a niche background and people came together and found him as a community. But he wasn't just that. He was also a successful businessman. He ran his comic book store. He was also a former member of the military as well, and talked about his PTSD. He talked about other things as well, in terms of his health, like how his voice was affected from constantly doing the voiceovers, and battling to put out content. battling against YouTube algorithms to try and stay relevant and make sure the channel kept on getting pushed. And he still had 2.9 million subscribers. You know, this guy was amazing. He's gonna be missed. You know, the wonderful thing about his work though is that it will always stay on as long as YouTube as a platform still keeps continuing and the channel does not get archived. I don't think his wife will ever archive the channel. I mean, I'll tell you now, for me, I was that kid who grew up reading comic books because my older brother got me into comic books, especially Marvel comics, when the first Secret Wars came out, because I loved Spider-Man growing up as a kid. As a very, very young child, loved it. And, got into the comics, and I couldn't read well, but the comics made me read well because I was so engaged in the stories. I learned to read properly. And, always creating voices in my mind, as you do, you attribute voices to the characters. And to see this guy bring that to life, it reminded me of my younger self. And more importantly, for anyone that was getting into comics at the time, the channels like his and, like I said, Comicstorian, I'm glad that those guys actually met and as YouTube creators, content creators, there's no beef. There's just love because they're all striving for the same thing, and there's enough, to go around. And of course, his passing is going to affect many people in the comic book community greatly. Like I said, right now you're going to be seeing a lot of videos everywhere about Comicstorian. Damn. 10 years is a journey. 10 years of work, it's not gone. And he lived his life. He definitely lived his life to the fullest. He's definitely one of those guys that you think, you know what, yeah, I hope to be like that kind of guy. Ben Potter, rest in peace. And I don't know who will see this, but if you're a member of the comic book community, I'm not a member. I'm I'm not King Lion. I'm not Dolph. I'm not any of these guys. I'm just basically a guy who enjoys comics, if I ever read them again, or will listen to Comics Explained or Comicstorian or Comicstorian on my YouTube subscriptions. And if someone does a comic story on TikTok, I'll watch it and maybe even put my little comment in there. I'm that guy. But for me to do this guy meant a lot to me as well. And I think he meant a lot to the comic book community too. So whoever you are, if you're watching this and you see this and you're a member of that community, show your love. Send your condolences, do what you need to. I'm seeing a lot of videos now coming out about Comicstorian. Rest in peace. Your work will always live on.